Has this ever happened to you? You're sitting at the blackjack table and you get dealt an ace and a king, and you hit anyways? Hi, I'm Alexander Best, creator, inventor, and founder of Muskrat's Blackjack training game. Today I'm going to walk you through a little bit about what this training game has to offer, including its features, some secret Easter eggs, as well as a little insight into how I went about creating this application. Now here at the Muskrat Best Blackjack training game facility, we know that we made the most creative blackjack training tool on the market. How do we know this? We did a little bit of old-fashioned testing. After weeks of failed attempts, we finally determined that for a tool like this to be considered a creative solution, it had to meet two criteria. First, it had to be novel, and secondly, it had to be practical. Let's begin with the novelty of this tool. While there are many blackjack training games available on the market, the free ones are, for lack of a better term, crappy. And the good ones, such as this one on the blackjackapprenticeship.com website, it can cost hundreds of dollars just to learn how to gamble your money away. So as I was about to fall asleep that night, I had a brilliant idea. Eureka! I'm going to make the best free blackjack training game on the market, I said. And that's exactly what I planned on doing. Its novelty would be in the fact that it would be just as good as its competitors, but it would be free for anyone to use. Now I'm going to let the practicality of this tool speak for itself, as I feel its features will show that it is a creative way to learn blackjack efficiently and effectively. Blackjack is a game of math and odds. If you play without a plan, the house has a 15.5% chance of beating you. If you use basic strategy, those odds are reduced to a 0.5% edge. In terms of functionality, Muskrat's Blackjack training game has three main functions. There's play regularly, which just allows you to play blackjack as you normally would. There is the practice basic strategy mode, and then lastly there's practice card counting mode. By declining to practice basic strategy and never being pop quizzed on the running count, the user is able to play blackjack as they would regularly. They're able to hit, stand, double down, or split if given a pair. And this version of the game follows all of the casino's standard rules, including the dealer hitting on a soft 17, as well as not being able to hit after splitting aces. Everything's there. At the end of each play session, the player is able to view their statistics from their past play session. I felt that this would act as a motivator so that people see their progress as they continue to practice. These things include their longest streak of making the correct call, as well as the percent of games that they won. The next mode is practicing basic strategy. By simply answering this question with yes and the next with never, it'll tell you if you've made the right or wrong decision after each call. So for example, the right move would be to stand here. And you can see that it says I'm correct. Now, if I were to make the wrong call, such as doubling down here, it would tell me that is the wrong decision. I should have just hit. All of this is based on the basic strategy guide, which the player can view after each round by typing chart down below. The basic strategy guide tells you, based on your sum of cards, or if you have an ace, or if you have a pair, what you should do depending on what the dealer is showing. To give the example above, where I doubled down on a 4 and a queen, which has a total of 14, if we look at the basic strategy guide, I should have hit, as seen here. The idea here is that after making a wrong call, the player would be able to refer back to the chart to help learn from their mistake and to improve over time. Another way to get an edge against the casino is to do card counting. While it can't predict the future, it can tell you if the next hand will be more in your favor or less in your favor. The higher the count, the more in favor it is for you to win. The lower the count, the better the odds are for the dealer. Every card that you see impacts the running count. If it's a 2 through 6, the count goes up by 1. If it's a 7 through 9, the count doesn't change. And if it's a 10 through ace, the count goes down by 1. Finally, if the player wishes to be quizzed on what the running count is, they can select how frequently the pop quizzes occur. For the purposes of this example, I'll say always. So after each round, I'll be quizzed about what the current running count is. So here I'll hit again, I busted. So pop quiz time, what is the current running count? Well, based on the fact that there is a 2, a 6, a jack, a 10, and a 9, it's safe to say that the running count would be 1, which is great. I got it correct. Alternatively, if I were to have gotten it wrong and said 4, it would tell me, sorry, that is not the current running count. The correct answer is 0. The underlying hope with this mode is that a player would start by being quizzed after every round, and slowly, as they get better at card counting, they would reduce the frequency of the quizzes as needed. Ultimately, after playing this game and practicing a lot, the player should know basic strategy perfectly and should be able to count cards without a flaw. I hope that it's now clear how this tool is both novel and practical, and is a creative solution to playing blackjack poorly. For the last portion of this video, I'm going to talk about some of my creative solutions that I implemented to overcome some bugs I experienced while programming. And lastly, I'll show you some of the Easter eggs that I sprinkled throughout the game that I thought would be a creative way to make the game a little bit more engaging and would keep players coming back. Look guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I am terrible at coding. Maybe I'm little C, but that's kind of pushing it. I really think I'm a mini C coder. When this thing started, I'm gonna show you, maybe we can show you on the green screen here. When I started this thing, it was just a series of if statements to see if the user input gave the correct call based on being given 2 cards. Were just numbers valued 1 through 11. They weren't even cards really. And then I joined this creativity class and I thought to myself, wow, I could really use this project to expand upon this idea. So that's where it started, and you can kind of see where it is now. There's like hundreds of lines of code now. It's almost at 1,000, which is nuts. It all started with like 50 before the start of this semester. And so with that, there was a couple of issues. For brevity's sake, I'm only going to show one of the bugs that I had a creative solution for. I later reworked it, but we're not going to talk about that. The issue was that when the player selects how many decks that they want to play with, it needed to be a number. But the player could input anything. They didn't have to put in a number. And if they put something that wasn't a number, it would crash the program, and it was terrible. So to solve this issue, I used ASCII method, which basically every character on a keyboard has its own decimal value. And I would take the user's input, which was a string or a series of characters, and I would convert it to the ASCII values, and then I would check to see if those ASCII values matched those of the numbers 1 through 9. And it was really long and strung out, and I found a better solution later. However, after a lot of brainstorming and a lot of troubleshooting, I came up with that really creative solution to this problem. So while I was editing this video, I remember there was another bug that I wanted to talk about. The way that I formulated this program was it would only save 3 player cards at a time. And so if you kept hitting and you got 5 or 6 or 7 cards that were all aces, the program wouldn't know when to swap which aces from an 11 to a 1. And that caused a lot of issues, especially if the player already split a pair. And so that took some creativity in figuring out how to store that information without actually keeping track of the different card values. This fix is really hard to explain without just kind of walking you through the code, which wasn't really conducive for this video. If you're interested in how I figured that one out, let me know and I can maybe get in touch with you about that. Otherwise, this video is already kind of long, so we're just gonna move past that. Finally, I'm going to show you guys some of the Easter eggs. I thought this would be a creative way to keep the game engaging and would motivate people to continue to play to try and find them all. One of them is related to how well or how poorly the player is doing. So, for example, if the player has played more than 10 games and has gotten less than half of the calls correct, then it'll tell you that you're not doing very well and that you should consider checking the basic strategy guide. Alternatively, if you've played 25 games and you've gotten everything right, it'll congratulate you on your awesome work and tell you that you haven't even made a bad call yet. Not all the Easter eggs are performance based, though. For example, this Easter egg is based solely on what cards you get at random. Other Easter eggs have to do with letting people know that I know that they're trying to break my game. So, for example, if you split two aces, most casinos will never let you hit after that. And so, if the player tries to do anything other than stand after splitting their aces, it'll tell you that that was a good try, but you're not allowed to do that, unfortunately. The point of this Easter egg was to try and have a creative way that encourages players to try and break this game. I want to find all the bugs that I can to make it as good of a program as possible. And so this was one of the ways I tried to get players to do that. And so that will wrap up this presentation about the Muskrats Blackjack training game. If you want to actually play the game for yourself, you can check out the other video that I posted, which will show you how to set it up on your browser. You can also check out my GitHub to look through all of my code. And I highly recommend that you continue to follow this project's development. I'm currently working on adding graphics, but as I said earlier, I'm kind of a mini C coder, and I don't know Python, which is how I would add graphics and add actual playing cards rather than just having it be a text-based game. And so that is coming soon, hopefully by next September. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Also, guys, please gamble responsibly. I mean, gambling ruins lives all the time, and I don't want for this to lead to someone